Part 1. What self-esteem really is and why it is fundamental for every aspect of your life. Imagine having an internal compass, a silent, invisible, yet incredibly powerful guide that influences every choice you make, every relationship you build, and every dream you pursue. This compass is called self-esteem. But what is it really? Nathaniel Branden, a psychotherapist and one of the world's pioneers in the field of self-esteem psychology, defines self-esteem as the reputation we have with ourselves. It is not a fleeting thought or a temporary moment of enthusiasm. It is an ongoing internal relationship with who we are, with what we do, and with how capable and worthy we feel. Brandon warns us, in a rapidly changing world where external securities collapse and challenges increase, self-esteem is not a luxury, it is a psychological necessity. Two key components of self-esteem. In his book, Brandon breaks down self-esteem into two essential dimensions. 1. Self-efficacy, confidence in one's mind, in one's ability to think, understand, choose, and face life's challenges. 2. Self-respect, the conviction of deserving happiness, success, and love. It is the deep belief that one has value as a human being. These two components are intertwined. Feeling capable is not enough if you do not feel worthy. And feeling worthy is not enough if you are afraid to act. For Brandon, self-esteem is the structural foundation of mental health and the cornerstone of every excellent performance, every fulfilling relationship, and every authentic success. Self-esteem in daily life. But what happens when we have low self-esteem? We avoid opportunities because we feel inadequate. We tolerate toxic relationships because we believe we do not deserve better. We sabotage ourselves, delay, and procrastinate. We constantly seek approval from others, losing sight of who we truly are. People with low self-esteem may appear confident on the outside, but inside they are fragile, insecure, and always in search of validation. On the other hand, those with healthy self-esteem take action even in the face of fear. Accept mistakes as lessons, not as condemnations. Do not conform to others out of fear of rejection. Have a broader and more creative vision of their lives. A common mistake, confusing self-esteem with arrogance. Many people confuse self-esteem with ego, but Brandon is very clear. Self-esteem is quiet, while arrogance makes noise. Someone with genuine self-esteem does not need to prove their worth to others. They do not seek to dominate, humiliate, or belittle. They feel solid enough to be kind, to say, "I do not know," to admit a mistake without losing their dignity. Those who constantly boast, who need to always display superiority, are searching outside for something they lack inside. Society and the crisis of self-esteem. Brandon also raises a social criticism. We live in a culture that, instead of teaching us to listen to ourselves and build our self-worth, bombards us with unattainable ideals. From a young age, we are taught to please others, to follow imposed rules, to ignore our inner voice in order to be acceptable. The result? A generation full of insecurities, anxiety, and a lack of trust in themselves. But the good news is that self-esteem can be built step by step. Why this book is revolutionary? The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem is not just a motivational book to read once and forget. It is a life manual. Every chapter is a call to action, an invitation to become the architect of your own destiny. Brandon does not promise it will be easy, but he guarantees it will be transformative. The first major lesson of the book is this: self-esteem is not a gift you are born with. It is a daily practice you can learn. Part 2. The first pillar of self-esteem, the practice of living consciously. The first pillar of self-esteem, according to Nathaniel Branden, is also its most solid foundation, the practice of living consciously. But what does living consciously truly mean? It is not just about being awake. It is about being present, truly present, in what we do, think, feel, and decide. It means living intentionally, not automatically. Being the director, not the spectator, of one's own existence. Living consciously, The difference between leading and being led. Imagine two people. The first wakes up, scrolls through their phone, rushes to work, does what they must, comes home exhausted, watches Netflix, and goes to bed. Day after day, the same routine. The second pauses, observes their thoughts, recognizes their emotions, and asks questions like, what do I truly want? Am I doing what aligns with my values? Am I acting out of fear or choice? Which of the two do you think will develop a solid self-esteem? Branden is clear. Consciousness is a choice, and we either choose it or avoid it every single day. It is the willingness to face reality even when it is uncomfortable, painful, or complex. Awareness is the first step toward personal power. Self-deception and self-esteem. Two irreconcilable opposites. One of the greatest obstacles to self-esteem is self-deception. We lie to ourselves to avoid change, to not face uncomfortable truths. But each time we do this, we destroy a brick of our self-esteem. Common examples. We know a relationship is destroying us, but we say, I will change him, her. We know that our job is draining us, but we think it is just a phase. We avoid looking at our self-destructive habits by saying, I am just a bit stressed. Branden says, we cannot respect ourselves while we are lying to ourselves. Those with healthy self-esteem choose the truth, even when it is hard. Daily exercise, living with eyes wide open. Branden proposes a simple but powerful technique, sentence completions. Every morning or evening, complete sentences such as, if I lived today more consciously, if I paid more attention to how I treat people, if I truly listened to what I am feeling. Repeat each sentence at least 5 to 10 times, writing it differently each time. This exercise acts directly on the subconscious and activates the mind in a deep and creative way. Day by day, you will begin to notice automatic thoughts, wrong choices, ignored truths, and you will finally have the power to change them. Consciousness and relationships. The art of being present. Being conscious does not mean being perfect. It means being present, even in how we relate to others. Often we speak with someone while thinking about something else, or we behave automatically with partners, children, or friends, reacting without understanding where the reaction comes from. Consciousness in relationships means listening without judging, recognizing one's emotions before acting, admitting when we are wrong without excuses or defensiveness. When we practice consciousness in relationships, we also send a powerful message to ourselves. I matter, my actions matter, and I am strong enough to look within. Practical application in daily life. Here are some concrete ways to live more consciously each day. Set a daily moment to ask yourself, am I acting automatically or intentionally? During a discussion, take a 10-second pause before responding. When feeling stressed, ask yourself, what am I ignoring? What am I avoiding feeling or acknowledging? Before making an important decision, write down the advantages, risks, and real motivations. Compare them to your values. The conclusion of Part 2. Awareness is the first act of love toward oneself. Without awareness, we cannot choose, and without choice, we cannot build anything. Awareness is power, and like any power, it requires discipline, courage, and will. Part 3. The second pillar of self-esteem, the practice of self-acceptance. After understanding the importance of awareness, Branden guides us into the second pillar of self-esteem, the practice of self-acceptance. Here comes one of the most transformative teachings in the book. We cannot love what we do not accept, and we cannot change what we reject. Accepting yourself, it is not surrender, it is power. Many people confuse self-acceptance with resignation or with justifying their flaws. Branden dismantles this misconception. Accepting oneself does not mean approving of every part of oneself, but honestly acknowledging who we are, without denial and without cruel self-judgment. Self-acceptance means saying to yourself, this is the reality of my being at this moment. I do not deny myself. I see myself. And precisely because I see myself, I can grow. It is a mental state of reconciliation, not of defeat. The enemy of self-esteem, the inner war. We often live at war with ourselves, hatred of our own bodies, shame over past mistakes, anger at emotions we consider wrong, fear of being judged if we show vulnerability. This inner conflict deeply undermines self-esteem. Branden teaches that we cannot build self-respect without first building friendship with ourselves. True strength arises when you stop fighting yourself and begin to embrace yourself with compassion. Radical acceptance equals unlocking growth. A common mistake is to think, I will accept myself when I am better. Branden reverses this logic. It is precisely by accepting yourself now, as you are, that you become capable of improving. For example, if you accept your insecurities, you can begin to work on them without self-blame. If you accept your fear of approaching women, you can learn to manage it instead of being dominated by it. If you accept your past failure, you can learn from it and try again, instead of avoiding it forever. The transformative exercise, dialogue with yourself. Branden suggests simple yet powerful exercises. One of the most effective for practicing self-acceptance is writing sentences such as, if I choose to accept what I am truly feeling, if I were more compassionate with myself about, if I could befriend the parts of myself I reject. Complete these sentences every day. Do not search for perfect answers. Let the truths you have buried rise to the surface. This exercise opens the door to personal forgiveness and emotional balance. The body is a battlefield and a place of peace. Another central theme is acceptance of your own body. We live in a culture that pushes us to judge our appearance harshly, but self-esteem cannot coexist with contempt for one's body. Branden suggests, start with the body. Look at yourself in the mirror every day and say, even just mentally, these words, this is my face. This is my body. It is a part of me. I accept it as it is. This is not about convincing yourself it is perfect. It is about stopping the rejection and starting to live in your body with dignity. Self-acceptance in relationships, the key to authenticity. Those who do not accept themselves wear masks. They seek approval. They avoid rejection at all costs. But this creates false, fragile, and fear-based relationships. Those who practice self-acceptance can say, this is who I am, with my strengths and my flaws. I do not need to be perfect to be loved. I can show my vulnerability without shame. True connection with others is only possible after we have made a connection with ourselves. Self-acceptance is the beginning of true relational freedom. Warning, acceptance does not mean settling. Branden is clear, self-acceptance does not mean stagnation. In fact, it is the first step toward growth. Acceptance means stopping the self-judgment for who you are today, using that foundation of reality to build the best version of yourself. It is like saying, I am here. This is my starting point, and from here, I can go anywhere. Conclusion of Part 3. Self-acceptance is a revolutionary act. It is the choice to no longer be your own enemy. It is recognizing your emotions without judgment. It is learning to embrace even your shadows. Without this acceptance, self-esteem will always remain fragile and dependent on external circumstances. With it, you finally become the master of your inner growth. Part 4. The third pillar of self-esteem, the practice of self-responsibility. After awareness and self-acceptance, Branden guides us to the third pillar of self-esteem, the practice of self-responsibility. This is where self-esteem becomes tangible power. It is the difference between being a victim of life or an active creator of your own destiny. What does it really mean to be responsible? Branden is not merely referring to moral or legal responsibility. He speaks of something much deeper, the responsibility of one's own existence. Being responsible for oneself means recognizing that you are the author of your thoughts, choices, emotions, and actions. Understanding that even if you do not control everything that happens to you, you do control how you respond to what happens. Accepting that you are the only one who can truly build the life you desire. Self-esteem cannot coexist with victimhood. The trap of victimhood. We live in a culture where blaming has become an art. I am this way because of my parents. If society were different, I would be successful. I cannot have healthy relationships because others reject me. But every time we blame, we give away our power. Every time you say it is someone else's fault, you are unconsciously saying, I have no power. I am helpless. I am a leaf in the wind. This is the poison of self-esteem, the power of saying I am responsible. On the contrary, those who cultivate self-esteem say, I choose what to think. I am responsible for my emotions. I can learn from what happens to me. I choose whether to react or to respond. This does not mean blaming yourself, but rather reclaiming your personal power. Example, a man who is afraid to approach a woman might say, I am this way because my mother was too controlling. Yes, I had certain experiences, but now it is up to me to decide how to respond. I can face my fears. Responsibility and practice. Every day, in everything, Branden invites us to ask ourselves, am I acting as a protagonist or as a spectator? Am I complaining or looking for solutions? Am I choosing or merely enduring? These questions are powerful tools to bring attention and intention back into daily life. Taking responsibility also means admitting your mistakes and learning from them, apologizing when you are wrong, not waiting for someone to come save you, but starting to move, even with small steps. The fundamental areas of personal responsibility. Branden identifies 5 key areas where responsibility strengthens self-esteem. 1. Personal goals and objectives. No one owes you anything. If you want something, it is up to you to plan and pursue it. 2. Choices and actions. Even when you do not choose, you are choosing. Inaction is a choice. 3. Time management. How you use your time reflects how much respect you have for yourself. 4. Emotional management. You cannot always control what you feel, but you can learn to understand and manage it. 5. Initiative and change. If you do not like your life, you are the one who must take the first step. Recommended exercise. Guiding phrases. Branden suggests completing daily phrases such as, if I fully accepted responsibility for my life today, if I took responsibility for my happiness, if I chose to act instead of complain. Repeating these exercises allows the subconscious to align with a new way of living. Responsibility equals freedom. This is the powerful paradox. The more you take responsibility, the freer you feel. You are no longer at the mercy of others, events, or the past. You become the author of your story, the captain of your ship, the leader of your growth. Conclusion of Part 4. Personal responsibility is the pillar of adult self-esteem. It is not heaviness, but lightness, because you stop waiting for someone to save you. It is pure empowerment. It is saying, I am strong enough to take life into my own hands, and this is where it begins. Part 5, the 4th pillar of self-esteem, the practice of self-assertion, narrated in a calm, firm, and reflective tone, with meaningful pauses. Have you ever heard that voice inside you? The one that wants to speak but stays silent? Have you ever wished to speak your truth, but something held you back? Today we are talking about a fundamental pillar in building true self-esteem, the practice of self-assertion. It is the moment when your inner identity steps into the world. It is that powerful transition when you say, without fear, I exist, and I have the right to be myself. But what exactly is self-assertion? It is not about shouting louder than others. It is not about imposing your will. It is the deep and courageous ability to defend your values, even under pressure. Express your ideas, desires, and beliefs, even with your heart racing. Say no when necessary without feeling guilty. Say yes to yourself, even when the world seems to say the opposite. Nathaniel Branden defines it as the willingness to stand up for one's inner reality, even when it is difficult or causes conflict. It is the courage to be authentic, real, human. Why is it so important for our self-esteem? Every time we choose silence out of fear, every time we repress a need to avoid judgment, every time we adapt just to please others, we are sending a destructive message to our subconscious. I am not worthy. My truth does not matter. It is better to be accepted than to be authentic. But every single act of truth, every word spoken with respect and courage, is a brick in the foundation of self-esteem. When you say what you think, when you protect your boundaries, when you choose honesty, even when it is uncomfortable, you are telling yourself, I matter, I am worthy, I can be myself, and still be okay. But then, why is it so difficult? Because we grew up hearing messages like, do not cause trouble, do not make a scene, you must please everyone. We were taught that. Being honest can push people away. Telling the truth can cause problems. It is safer to adapt than to risk being yourself. But that compromise has a very high cost, the loss of our identity. A word of caution, self-assertion does not mean aggression. Branden makes this very clear. Self-assertion is not about claiming the right to dominate. It is not about speaking over others. It is not about forcing your will. It is about balance between respect for yourself and respect for others, between courage and listening, between dignity and empathy. Being assertive means knowing who you are, what you want, and having the courage to say it without stepping on anyone. Concrete examples. You are with a group of friends. Everyone agrees on something, except you. Instead of staying silent, you calmly say, I see it differently. May I explain? In a relationship, you feel the need to spend more quality time together. Instead of swallowing your frustration, you sincerely say, I would love to spend more time with you. It is important to me. Inside yourself, you feel fear in saying what you think, but you say it anyway, and a new strength begins to grow within. Tools to develop self-assertion. Branden offers practical and powerful exercises. Sentence completions, such as, if I had more courage to express what I feel, if I had the right to say what I really think. Daily practices, such as, each day perform a small, assertive act, ask for something, express a need, say an honest no. Notice when you self-censor. Then ask yourself, what would I have said if I had the courage to be myself? Self-assertion equals inner growth, freedom, respect. Each time you assert yourself, it is like saying, I am free. It is a step out of the cage of compliance. It is a seed that nourishes your identity, your sense of dignity, your deep self-respect, and above all, it strengthens the belief that you can be authentic and loved at the same time. Conclusion: the heart of personal courage. Self-assertion is the moment when self-esteem stops being a thought and becomes an action, a word, a choice. It is the difference between playing a role and living a real life. Those who assert themselves build healthy relationships. Those who assert themselves attract respect. Those who assert themselves finally feel at peace with themselves. Have you ever been afraid to say what you truly thought? How did you respond? Share your experience in the comments and remember to subscribe for more content that nurtures both mind and heart. Part 6. The fifth pillar of self-esteem, the practice of living purposefully. If the previous pillars have built the inner foundation, this fifth pillar is about how to move through the world with coherence and direction. Nathaniel Branden calls it living purposefully, and he considers it one of the most important elements for building strong and lasting self-esteem. What does it mean to live purposefully? It means acting with a clear purpose rather than living on autopilot or in a passive state. It is not just about doing, but about doing with awareness and a clear reason. It is the opposite of being carried away by circumstances, by momentary emotions, or by others. Living purposefully means using the power of the mind to choose, to decide, to plan, and to focus. Branden invites us to ask ourselves, where am I going? Why am I doing what I am doing? Do my actions reflect my values and goals? Purposefulness as a mental discipline. We often live in a kind of mental sleep. We make choices based on habit, impulse, or to please others. Living purposefully instead means paying attention to what we are doing, consciously choosing our goals. aligning our daily actions with our long-term vision. Branden emphasizes, a person with high self-esteem sees themselves as the captain of their own ship. A practical example: two people wake up in the morning. One gets up, scrolls through their phone, eats a random breakfast, and leaves the house without a plan. The other asks themselves, what do I want to achieve today? What can I do to move closer to my vision? How do I want to respond to difficulties? The second person is living purposefully, and every day that they live in this way, they reinforce their self-esteem. The characteristics of those who live purposefully: 1. They have clear goals, even small ones. 2. They organize their time and energy in function of those goals. 3. They recognize obstacles and prepare to face them. 4. They monitor their progress, correct their mistakes, and get back up. 5. They act with consistency without sabotaging themselves with contradictory choices. In other words, those who live purposefully have a strategic mind and an active will. Purposefulness strengthens identity. Every time you make a conscious choice, you send this message to your brain: I am responsible. I direct my life. I can rely on myself. This has a powerful effect on self-esteem because you no longer see yourself as a leaf in the wind, but as a person with a stable center. The opposite, living reactively. Branden warns against the trap of living reactively. That is, letting oneself be dominated by momentary emotions, acting to avoid pain instead of seeking growth, always saying we'll see instead of making decisions. This way of living weakens self-esteem, creates a sense of powerlessness, makes you feel at the mercy of circumstances. Branden's practical exercises. To train the practice of living purposefully, Branden proposes self-reflection journals such as, oh, if I were to live more purposefully today, I would. Oh, if I took my goals seriously, I would. Active planning. Oh, every morning, write down 3 actions aligned with your goals. Oh, every evening, reflect on whether you completed them. Weekly visualization. Oh, every Sunday evening, imagine the ideal week you would like to live. Then create a minimal plan to make it happen. Connection with real life. Those who live purposefully are more focused at work, manage their time better, improve their relationships because they are more present and consistent, face problems with clarity, not with impulsive reactions, and most importantly, feel valuable because they live according to their own principles, not others' expectations. Conclusion of Part 6. Purposefulness is the silent engine of self-esteem. When you live with intention, with awareness, each day becomes an opportunity to prove to yourself that you are trustworthy. That is how self-respect is born. I made a choice. I took action. I directed my life. And even if I made mistakes, I took responsibility. This is what it means to live as the protagonist of your own story. And this is what builds a stable, charismatic, and confident personality. Part 7. The 6th pillar of self-esteem, the practice of personal integrity. After exploring self-awareness, self-acceptance, responsibility, assertiveness, and living intentionally, we now arrive at the 6th and final pillar of self-esteem, personal integrity. According to Nathaniel Branden, no pillar is truly solid unless it is supported by this one, because self-esteem ultimately depends on how faithful we are to what we know to be true, right, and important to us. What is personal integrity? Integrity is not about external morality imposed by others. It does not mean being good according to social standards. It means living in alignment with one's own values, principles, and deepest beliefs. In short, if you say you believe in honesty but lie for convenience, you are sabotaging your integrity. If you claim health is important, but you eat poorly and drag yourself through the day without exercising, you are betraying yourself. If you say you want a fulfilling life but procrastinate, self-sabotage, and settle for less than your potential, you cannot truly respect yourself. Personal integrity is the invisible foundation of true self-esteem. The direct link with self-esteem. Every time we act in a way that is inconsistent with our values, something happens inside us. A part of us takes note. An inner conflict arises, and the voice of self-esteem whispers, "You are not trustworthy." On the other hand, every time you keep a promise, tell the truth even when it is difficult, act in accordance with what you believe, you are telling yourself, "I can count on myself." And that is how self-esteem grows stronger at its core. When integrity is put to the test, Branden emphasizes that integrity is not needed when it is easy. True integrity emerges when you are under pressure, you have something to lose, no one is watching. These are the moments when you can choose whether to compromise yourself for immediate gain or remain consistent even if it means losing in the short term. Those who choose integrity, even at the cost of small sacrifices, develop a powerful sense of identity. The main enemies of integrity: 1, fear of judgment, which pushes us to pretend, conform, or manipulate. 2, the need for approval, which leads us to betray our ideals just to be liked. 3, spiritual laziness, which tells us it does not matter anyway, making us accept silent compromise. 4, cynicism. Everyone does it. Why should I be different? Branden invites us to be courageous. Not perfect, but aware and honest with ourselves. Exercises proposed by Branden. To cultivate personal integrity. Write a list of your core values, e.g., truth, growth, justice, love. Every evening ask yourself, did I live in alignment with my values today? Where did I betray what I believe in? What can I do tomorrow to realign myself? Reflect with guiding prompts like, oh, if I lived with complete integrity, I would. Oh, if I never betrayed my principles, today I would have. Oh, if I always respected myself, I would. Daily application. Here are real examples of how personal integrity can be applied. Work. You do not accept a project you do not believe in, even if it pays well. Relationships. You say what you truly feel without manipulating others to gain love. Well-being. You respect your personal limits, even if the group expects something different. Personal dreams. You keep building what you believe in, even when no one applauds. Every such choice reinforces your self-trust, and it shapes a magnetic, authentic, and stable character. Summary of Part 7. Personal integrity is the glue that holds all the other pillars together. Without it, awareness is empty, assertiveness is fake, and intentionality is deceptive. With it, each day becomes a quiet but powerful self-affirmation. I live according to what I believe. I am aligned inside and out. I respect myself. And this is the profound secret of self-esteem. It cannot be bought, begged for, or obtained from the outside. It is built day by day by living as a person of integrity. Part 8. Integrating the 6 pillars into daily life. How to turn them into real strength. We have explored each of the 6 pillars of self-esteem one by one, and now it's time to understand how they come together into a single inner structure that supports every aspect of our world, from work to relationships to how we see ourselves. Branden explains that self-esteem is not a concept, but a living process. It's something that happens every day through thoughts, choices, and actions. And it is precisely when we consistently integrate the 6 pillars that we become truly strong, confident, respected, and free. 1. It all starts with awareness. Being aware is like turning on the light in a dark room. When you practice awareness, you can no longer lie to yourself. You see clearly what you are doing, what you feel, what you are avoiding, and only then can you change. Guiding question: what am I avoiding looking at in my life? What happens when I stop making excuses for myself? This is the foundation for everything else. 2. Self-acceptance is the fuel for change. Many think, I criticize myself to improve. Wrong. True improvement comes from acceptance, not self-contempt. Only when you say, "This is who I am right now," can you transform from a stable, solid foundation. Key phrase, I am worthy of respect, even if I am not perfect. When you accept yourself, you stop sabotaging yourself. You give yourself permission to grow. 3. Responsibility. Take the helm. Life can be tough, but you are always in control of your reactions. Every time you blame others, you make yourself weak. Every time you say, "It's my fault, but I can act," you become powerful. Hard but saving question. What am I doing to sabotage my own growth? This responsibility does not oppress you. It frees you. 4. Assertiveness. Be what you are, without fear. You are not born to please others. You are not here to make yourself small or invisible. Every time you speak your truth with courage and respect, your self-esteem rises. Key question, what am I not saying because I'm afraid of rejection? Being assertive is sexy. It's strong. It's authentic. It's one of the secrets to true personal security. 5. Intentionality. Lead your life. Don't follow it. Don't wait. Don't just react. Act with purpose. Every day ask yourself, what do I really want to create? What small steps can I take today? Intentionality takes you from being a spectator to being the director of your existence. 6. Personal integrity, the glue of it all. If the first 5 pillars are actions, integrity is the invisible foundation. It's that voice inside that says, I am faithful to what I believe. Betraying this voice, demolishing everything. Listening to it, building an unstoppable inner strength. Reflection, did I live according to my principles today? Being integral is living in harmony between what you think, say, and do. Real-life application, work, relationships, sexuality work. Those with self-esteem work with passion and independence. They are not slaves to approval. They choose courageously, take responsibility, and lead rather than endure. Relationships. People with self-esteem do not settle. They do not beg for love. They do not manipulate to avoid losing someone. They offer authenticity, ask for respect, and give freedom. Sexuality. Self-esteem is reflected in one's sex life. Those who truly love themselves live sexuality with openness, presence, and self-respect. They do not use sex to fill internal voids. Why people with self-esteem are attractive. They don't complain. They don't make excuses. They don't act. They are real, and being real is magnetic. Women and men perceive this energy. Self-esteem is not just a concept. It is felt in body language, in the eyes and tone of voice. The daily practice Branden insists, self-esteem is not achieved. It is cultivated every day. Here's a simple routine. 1. In the morning, ask yourself what you can do today to honor your values. 2. During the day, act consciously, assertively, and intentionally. 3. In the evening, reflect. Where have you been authentic? Where have you avoided yourself? With this practice day after day, you become invincible. And you? Are you living every day with integrity, intentionality, awareness? If you truly want to increase your self-esteem, don't wait. Start today. Small choices, big results. Subscribe to the Mindset Generation X channel for more powerful content like this. Like, share, and comment on which pillar impacted you the most.